Doctor, please, now we cannot see, the content. Your PPT now we can't see it. We can see just Teams, the meeting itself, but we cannot see your PowerPoint. Dr. Misida, can you hear me?
Okay, I just lost connection there, but I believe I'm back now.
Yes, Doctor, we can hear you now.
Okay.
You may just share, the screen.
Yes, let me know if you can see this.
Yes, we can see it now.
Fantastic, okay.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'd like to welcome all of you in today's talk, Making My Teaching Visible, which will be delivered by Dr. Misida Al Jawhari. And she's an assistant professor of organizational change and human resources management in Sultan Qaboos University. She's specialized in strategic change processes. She's also a facilitator of learning, and she's going to share her experience with us today, inshallah. And I hope that all of you will be able to learn something valuable out of today's session, inshallah. So the floor is yours, Dr. Misada.
Okay. Thank you very much for that introduction. Hello, everybody. I'm really pleased to be part of your team today, UTAS-Ibri, and I look forward to having a fruitful conversation with all of you. I love talking about teaching. I love spending time with teachers. I have a passion for teaching, but I'm not an expert in education. So I'm not here to talk about teaching theories and telling people how to do things. I'm just here to share my experience. Okay. I've been teaching in SQU since 2002 when I was hired as a demonstrator or a teaching assistant. And since then, my journey in teaching started. It actually started even before that, and I will get to that when we move on. So I'm from the Department of Management in College of Economics and Political Science. This is the department which I graduated from, and the department that hired me and has developed me and still developing me. It is still investing in me. I did my bachelor's and then my master's, and after that my PhD, and I'm still trying to pursue some professional qualifications in the area of teaching and learning, which is an area that I really am fond of. Okay. My presentation today is going to be about making teaching visible. And when we talk about teaching, we're also talking about learning, and we will touch on that. So I always like to start this way. I'm not an expert, right? But I'm someone who loves teaching, as I said, and loves talking about teaching with teachers. So I'm not here to tell people how to teach. but I'm here to share my experiences and to promote a culture of teachers' collaborations and a culture of making our teaching visible. Now, a lot of what we do, as you all know, happens between ourselves and our students in closed classrooms, within offices, and now online, and it's hidden. It's not visible to others. And this puts us at a disadvantage as teachers because it makes our growth limited, as how Robert John Meehan said. It makes our growth limited to our own perspectives. Now, Robert John Meehan, the late Robert John Meehan, is one of the leading voices for teachers in the United States. He actually is recognized as the voice of the American teacher. He's got really nice books, and this quote is from one of his books, Teacher's Journey. He also said, when teachers are working together, they can do powerful things to improve their own teaching. And in turn, you improve student learning. So that's another of his publication, The Joy and Sorrows at Teacher's Journey. What am I going to talk about today? Well, after almost 2 decades of teaching from 2002 to 2022 and continuously questioning my practices and always looking for better ways of doing things, always asking myself, is this right? What evidence do I have? Have my students learned? What evidence do I have? You know, along the years, I learned, and I'm confident to say that I managed to improve, and I'm still there in that journey of continuous improvement. Now, that heart there is a heart of a teacher who loves talking to other teachers and sharing experiences with other teachers and believing that we're all good teachers and we're all unique in our own ways. And I believe that any teacher I sit with, I will learn something from them. So I would like to share with you the changes made in the way I teach and assess students, and I want to show you how we can all improve by making our teaching visible. So to start with my journey as a teacher, almost 20 years now, it all started back in 2002. I was a fresh graduate and my HOD asked me if I would like to work for the university. Back then, she died of cancer, Allah yarhamha. She said, Misida, we need more Omani women in higher education. Today we're here, tomorrow we won't be here. We want continuity. Would you like to join us? And I said, yeah, why not? I just shrugged, and said, yeah, why not? I was hoping to join the oil and gas and the banking industry. You see, those two industries attract all the top students. And the university had a program, a professional development program, where they targeted their top students and wanted to, to turn them into future experts. So I'm saying this 20 years later, and I'm very, very, I feel very indebted to my university, and I feel very indebted to the late Sultan Qaboos, who's, who we carry his name in everything that we do. So I got trained as a teaching assistant, and that was the beginning of the program. We were taught about how to teach in higher education, the different teaching methods and how to assess and how to deal with students. We assisted teachers, but it was based on, whenever they wanted. So we would do some marking, we would do some invigilation and some parts of teaching if they wanted. But then what I found after that is that many teachers did not like talking about teaching, I was expecting something else. I was expecting to see excitement and passion, but this is not what I saw. What I saw was people who just wanted to get the job done and leave. Not all of them, of course, we have to be fair, but I did see a large number like that. And what this did to me, it did not make me lose hope or get demotivated. It just made me look into myself. I started focusing on myself, and I started also looking outwards internationally. So I focused on improving myself. I wanted to know, who am I as a teacher? You see, I was still exploring, and that's the natural progression in a career, in career stages. You start with exploring. So I was exploring. I didn't know what kind of a teacher I was. So I wanted to explore myself, and I wanted to explore this this fantastic field that creates all the other professions. So I started reading whenever I felt like, and I started watching videos about teachers of the world, people who had curiosity, people who loved teaching, people who shared their experiences, you know, people who talked about what worked and what didn't work. And I would take notes and try some of those practices in my own teaching, very carefully and also little by little. And mind you, this was all done as a solo journey. Along the way, I had many questions, and I still do have many questions. But of course, these questions now are at a higher level. It is something about these questions that actually helped me improve. These questions were my guiding stars. It's because I recognized them, I respected them, and I worked to find answers. So looking back, when I was designing this presentation, you know, I asked myself, what really helped you improve? This is a question I'd never asked myself, but having to come and share my experience with other teachers, I'm sure, you know, I said to myself, they would want to know what actually helped you in your journey. What helped me are a couple, well, actually, there's 3 or 4 things that actually helped me, among other environmental factors, family-related factors, you know, intrapersonal things as well. Self-efficacy, an internal locus of control. You know, that belief that if I work hard, I will be able to achieve my goal. That trust in yourself, I had that. And that came as a result of, you know, my hard work as a student and getting the grades that I wanted after working hard. So I carried that with me, and it affected my thinking as a teacher, as a new teacher. So I had that strong belief that if I worked hard and wanted to get to somewhere, I would reach there. That helped me a lot, actually. And another thing that helped me improve is the way I looked at my destiny, my fate. You know, I'm a person who believes that I'm in control of my outcomes in my life. I believe that, you know, life is what you make it. Yes, there is a higher force, you know, God, that plans and controls everything. But at the end, we are judged whether we were good or bad. So this is like an examination hall, and we decide what we do. That's why we get evaluated at the end. So I have this internal locus of control, and that helped me a lot. And actually, there is research that proves that when you have this internal locus of control, your achievements will be more, you'll be more independent, and that helped me in my journey, my lonely journey as a teacher. It will help you health-wise, less depression, you know, better outlook of the future, helps you cope with stress. And for married women with multiple responsibilities, that also helps you to cope with your home responsibilities and your relationship with your spouse. Now, I thought to share some tips. If you think you are more of a person who has an external locus of control, who believes that your luck, your fate, outcomes are largely determined by others, then try to recognize the basic fact that you can make a choice and that it's you who makes that choice. And when you don't make a choice, actually, you have made a choice not to change, not to improve. And if you keep on doing what you're doing, you will keep on getting what you're getting. It's not about things around you, it's about yourself. It's the choices that you make. So set goals for yourself, and you know, you pave ways for that, put strategies on how to achieve, and monitor your performance and take corrective action whenever you feel that you need to do so. And you'll find that, you know, your confidence will quickly build, and you will feel that you're in more control of your life as a teacher. The other thing that helped me is my mindset. I'm more of a person who accepts failures and looks at failures as learning opportunities. Failures do not stand as obstacles for me, you know. And when I fail, I actually sometimes like it because I realize that if I had not failed, I wouldn't have learned this. It's a difficult way of learning, but failing helps make you a better person. Learning from feedback, when someone criticizes you and says, no, that's not how you should have done it, I don't get bothered by it. I actually become curious when people express, that they are against what I'm doing, or they have a totally different idea. I become very curious, and sometimes people get confused with my reaction in meetings, especially in top level meetings in the university, when I say, I really like what you've said. And they're like, Doctor, this person is against your idea and your plan. I said, yes, they're seeing something that I can't see. Now I want to know more. Could you please write for me, some justifications? And I give them a task and I say, just let me see what you can see. So I'm inspired by others, and I believe that my mistakes help me grow. On the opposite side, you have the fixed mindset. This is a person who would avoid challenges, a person who, once they fail, they just give up, a person who, you can break them with criticism and with negative feedback, and they just decide not to do anything, not to improve, or even sometimes to psychologically withdraw or even physically withdraw from situations, or even change careers. What else helped me? When I look back, I realize it is intellectual humility. That belief that you're conscious that there are things you don't know, and you accept that, and you feel that it is okay to talk about what you don't know. It is okay to say in a presentation that, that's a nice question, actually. I never thought about it. I am going to look into it. In the beginning, in my early years, I started reading about, what if a student would ask me a question that I didn't have an answer for? That would be very embarrassing. How do I get away from that? What do I do? But then now, if you ask me, I'm not looking for a way for, a technique to help me pretend that I know the answer, but I do tell my audience, whether they're managers or they're students or a group of researchers or top decision makers in my university, I thank you for that question. I tell them the parts that I have information, and I tell them I will definitely look into that and I will get back to you. But I do actually get back to them, and I thank them because they help me learn more. So the importance of knowing that you might be wrong is actually an energy that pushes you to look for more. You're conscious about what you know, but the more you learn, you start seeing a lot more, and you realize that there is much, much more that I don't know. Okay, let's test your intellectual humility. These are questions that you might, maybe some of you are curious, and let's go through these questions. Do I tend to think more like a soldier or a scout? A soldier's work is to defend, so they're always defending themselves. But if you are thinking more like a scout, then you want to explore and discover. I would just like to, I want to check if I'm still there, because sometimes I do tend to lose connection. So, okay, I'm still there. Good. So, which one are you? Do you think, and I want you to silently think about this and be honest to yourself. Are you more on the defensive side, or are you more on the exploratory, discovering side? The side you should be more on is the exploring and discovering. That will open your mind and your heart to learning. Would I rather be right, or would I rather understand? You see, many of us, when we are in a conversation, we listen so that we can get the answer right and prove that we're right and we're better than others. But we should listen to understand and to learn from the other person. So if you're placing too much information on being right, which means you are on the defensive mode, then you are shutting yourself off from learning and from understanding and from relating in a professional way, in a fair way, to other educated professional people like yourself. Do I solicit and seek out opposing views, or do you prefer actually not to ask people? about their opposing views? You know, do you tend to ask people if they disagree with you, and do you invite them to explain themselves and say why? Are you curious to know what other people see, things that you don't see? Do I enjoy the pleasant surprise of discovering that you're mistaken? I have learned to do this. In the beginning, you know, it was all fear. Oh my God, I've proven that I don't know, I've made mistakes. But now for me, it's like, oh, so really, I did not know that. Thank you so much. But what I do after that is I go back and read. And I sometimes go back and have a conversation with the person, not to prove that I was right, but to give them credit for helping me learn, and also give them my views and opinions now about that topic. So signs of that you have this humility, and intellectual humility is when you think like a scout, and when you listen to understand, when you solicit and seek out opposing views, and when you consider mistakes as learning experiences, an act of discovery. Okay, so I just put that in a larger for the, maybe some of you would want to, you know, take pictures of that. I don't know. I know this is something that people do. Okay. What else? What helped me improve? It's my own questions. Remember when I said my guiding stars? It's those. Those questions, my guiding stars. Okay, so what are these questions? I used to ask myself a lot, why do you teach? You know, and we're going to talk about that. And I will ask you why you teach. And this will help you achieve something very important when you have the answer. Used to ask myself, what is the right way to teach? And I'm going to share my findings with you. It's not the right way, but it's more, you know, ways that I have evidence that they work. How to win the hearts of students. How to make students enjoy your classes. They don't have to like me, but I don't want them to hate me, because in communication, just basic communication, if you don't like the sender of information, you're not going, that's going to lead to unsuccessful communication. They're not going to listen to you. So it's important that they like you. It's important that they enjoy your sessions. You know, when we go for training and they evaluate training, the first question you get asked is, did you enjoy this? Because the first level of evaluating the success of any training program is, did they like it? Because if they didn't, then everything else will not work. You know, the second layer of evaluating is, did they learn? The third layer, has their behavior changed? The fourth layer, are there any new outcomes or better outcomes? And the fifth layer is their return on investment from this training or from all this time I spend with my students. How to win the hearts of students, you know, respecting them and caring about them, showing them that you care about their future. You're teaching them for their future, and we will say more about that. The fourth question that has been guiding me is, how to know that your students have learned? Do you ever ask yourself that question? We tend to just design tests, give them assignments, and then give them their scores, and that's it. Whoever scored high, it's because of they worked hard, and whoever scored low, you know, they didn't work enough. Do you link students' results with the effectiveness of your own teaching? You see that chemistry between teaching and learning? Do you see that? Are you interested in studying that relationship? What is the relationship between students' grades and your teaching methods? I mean, just because you covered a topic, it doesn't mean that they learned it. So when will change start in the way you teach? It's when you start asking such questions. And once you start getting evidence of what works and what doesn't work, follow that path and answer all the questions. Whenever a question comes up in your mind as a teacher on how you teach, write that question. And in your free time, whenever you feel like reading and talking about teaching, just go on YouTube, you know, go to different websites about teachers, for teachers, and I'm sure you will find useful information. So let's go question by question. Why do I teach? something I asked myself, well, I teach because I want students to learn. We teach for student learning. That's the purpose of teaching. But then there's something higher than that. You know, I want my students to be happy. I want them to be happy global citizens. Wherever they go in the world, I want them to have the knowledge and skills that, and the personality and the mindset. They can use all that to make the right choices so that they can be safe and they can be happy and they can be productive citizens. And I tell this to my students. And once you do that, you see their eyes shining and they gradually start loving you. There's like, here is someone who cares about us. Oh my God, this person actually is teaching me for my future. I respect this person. I have seen this gradually increasing along the years. Okay, so what guides me? Where do I get, what leads me? I start with vision, with Oman Vision. In the beginning, it was Vision 2020, and now it's Vision 2040. Since I was a student, I used to be interested in knowing what's the vision of our country, maybe because of my management education, what's the vision of companies, what's the vision of Sultan Qaboos University, how do I make sure that I'm aligned? I don't want to waste my time. I'm teaching in Sultan Qaboos University. Whatever I do should be contributing to that vision. Otherwise, I'm not aligned. I'm wasting the institution's time and also my own time. So Oman Vision 2040 talks about youth, talks about education. We have the National Education Strategy of Oman. We have also, in my organization, you have the strategic directions of SQU. We have SQU graduate attributes, and I'm sure in other universities like yourself, you would have that. And it is very important that you have a look. Actually, in SQU, we have these in all course outlines. So we have a standard template for all course outlines that ensure alignment with the program. So College of Science, the degree program must be aligned with these attributes, the objectives of that program, and the course objectives. And we go to the lowest level, which is the student learning outcomes. What is it that you expect your students to be able to do by the end of the course? All of these should be working towards achieving those attributes. What do we want our students to be like? So who is this ideal graduate of SQU? Who are our ambassadors and they carry our name wherever they go? Well, we focus on things like we want them to be able to apply skills and knowledge that's relevant to, the area they're focusing on, to be able to communicate and to use the technologies, to be critical, thinkers, to be able to handle complex information. We focus on personality. We want them to be able to be aligned with the culture of Oman, but also not to have trouble, wherever they go outside. And that's why we teach them international business, international management, motivation. We want our students to be independent learners. And I do include that in my teaching, critical thinking. I do include that in my teaching, ethics. Most of the book chapters you would find there would be a chapter on ethics or some cases or some highlights on ethical dilemmas or ethical issues. Do stop there, because actually in Oman we do focus on that. And we focus on teamwork and, of course, as I mentioned, the idea of being a global citizen. And I also look at the future skills. These guide me, because I don't want to waste my time focusing on things that are not useful. So what is useful? It's these sources of information that will tell you what's useful. So for example, we have Oman Future Skills, a report which you can find on that link there. It was done in partnership with the World Economic Forum. And this is to help, to show how global economic mega trends like artificial intelligence, you've got big data, you've got deep learning, technological changes that we're all experiencing, how these are transforming the skills that are required for work. And, at the end, why are you teaching your students? One of the reasons is you want them to be employable. So for them to be employable, they need to have the skills that are required by employers. Okay, so why do we teach? So when I asked teachers, some of the answers I got are these. Well, some would say, well, because It's one of these jobs where you can become a professional. You know, I'm looking forward to become a professor, an expert in my area. So you do have high quality training and development opportunities offered in universities, which are free and you don't have to pay for. Some said it's job autonomy. You know, it's one of those jobs where you have a lot of freedom in making decisions, how to do your work, which courses you want to teach, which chapters, you know, in designing your own weekly schedule or schedule, if you call it that way, or your timetable. You know, very secured in terms of, you know, the chances that you would lose your job or you would be asked to leave. High job security. Some of them said it's because I like inspiring students. I like assisting people to discover what they don't know, what they need. I want to make a difference in Oman, or I want to make a difference in the world. Some say I want to give back to society. And some say, well, I do it because of the stability, you know, the security, you know, the job autonomy, and because it's a good salary for me. And I get several weeks off, and I get paid, and I get time to spend with my family and so forth. So you will find many reasons, and this is because people have different motivational needs. Now ask yourself, why do you teach? Why do you teach? Why do you go to university or the college you do every day? You wake up in the morning and you go there. What is that big purpose of yours? It's not just to get a job done, isn't it? There's something else about it. So take some seconds and think about it. Write it down. If you never asked yourself that question, well, this is an opportunity, a moment where you can think about it. Why do I teach? You know, jot down some ideas. And whatever you write now, write the date under it. Stick it somewhere in your office. When I did this, I framed it actually. That was several years back. I framed it. That was a younger me. You know, I can't go back to that, Misida. I can't go back to her, but I have her writing. I have her, the way she was thinking at that time and her ambitions. I'm connected to her now through that. So I framed it and I read it. But along the years, I started expanding it and changing it, tweaking it a bit. How will that help you? That will give you a clear sense of purpose and direction. It's very important that you know why you're doing what you're doing. It will help. It will motivate you a lot. So I put that frame there just to emphasize the idea, you know. It will look nice in your office, believe me. Something really personal. And it will give you purpose and direction. You know, John F. Kennedy said, efforts and courage are not enough without purpose and direction. So are you scattered all around? You know, your efforts, they need to be focused. Focused towards what? There should be some clear direction, a vision that you have for yourself, for your students, for Oman, for your whatever. It's yours. But it's got to be aligned with you know, the country that you are serving through teaching. What are its priorities? The university you are serving, what are its priorities? These students, you are shaping their minds and preparing them for the workplace. Are you focused? Are you aligned with these future skills and the challenges that they're going to face? On question 2, what is the right way to teach? Now, I prefer saying, well, what did I find work better? So logically, if teaching is about learning, then the right way to teach, you know, would be the way that ensures their learning. And I'm going to share my answers after the next 2 questions. So ask yourself another question. What's the right way of teaching your course? Are you using the right methods? Are these methods the appropriate methods to help you achieve the student learning outcomes? So if your learning outcome is for students to be able to critically analyze something, are you actually using teaching methods that train their minds to critically analyze? Do they know what critical analysis is? Do you give them assignments that help them to critically analyze these topics? Are you using the right ways? Well, if you believe that you are, then that is good. But then the other question is, what evidence do you have? Can you justify that? How to win the hearts of students. And as I said, you know, the way I have been doing it is it's because of my personality. I have good assumptions about everyone until people prove wrong, you know, prove themselves wrong. But I also I I give people excuses. You know, it helps me a lot, my own mental health and my heart. So I have good assumptions about my student. I respect them. I care about them, and I show them that I care about them. Whatever mistake is made, I link it to the workplace, and I said, if this is repeated in the workplace, these will be the consequences. So you need from now to work on overcoming that weakness of yours. Link whatever you teach to their lives. That's the hook. This is the hook that I have seen. You know, these are young adults, and they're starting to think in just like us. What is in it for me? Why should I even go to class? You know, I can read the book, I can watch the slides. It's just boring slide after slide, slide after slide. What's in it for me? Try in your next class to link to their lives. If you can't link it, ask them to do it. Who has experienced this? Who has this? And you will see the change that will happen in their engagement. Add some games and fun. Students tend to get bored. You know, it's not only your class. They take 5 courses, 4 courses, how many lectures a day? They do get bored. You know, towards the end of the session, you can come up with creative ways, you know, as their leaving ticket. Before you leave, you need to do this. Okay, so there's so many games and nice activities to use, and you can find them online. So do you have positive or negative assumptions about your students? Do you use theory X, McGregor's theory X or theory Y in teaching? Right? Like in theory X, we say that well, it's for workers, but we can apply this even on students. You know, we believe everything negative about them. So students don't like learning. Students will avoid learning whenever they can. Students must be forced to follow rules, policies, procedures. You must threaten them. Students need to be controlled and punished. Students have little creativity. They don't care. The only time they become creative is when they want to bend rules and when they're cheating. Well, there's a little bit of truth in that, isn't it? Well, are you more of a theory X or a theory Y in your teaching person in your teaching and when you deal and when you relate with students? Well, I'm more of a theory Y person. And I do tell students, I respect you all. I believe that you're good people. You like learning. You come to class because you're curious. You know that this course is important for you to get a job and to understand the world and to make good decisions. I know you're responsible. And I know that all of you are unique and creative. And I will create the conditions to help you. You know, once I put them in that situation, they become really embarrassed. And when they miss class or they come late, they come and apologize. Not because they fear that I'll punish them, but because they are embarrassed. They say, here is someone who respects us and has all these positive assumptions about us, and I'm proving something else. Okay. And of course, situational leadership and management will always work. You know, you need to manage according to the situation. But having good assumptions about other people is actually also required in many religions. So it is an act of worship as well. How to know that students learned? As I said, just because you covered something, it doesn't mean that they learned. Well, you have a lot of areas to go. You know, you can assess them. There's so many ways, but you can look at their test scores. That's what we all have. You know, test scores across sections, test scores semester after semester in that course that you're teaching. And a method that I use at the postgraduate level in my MBA classes where I teach organizational change, I use the pre-test and post-test method. But here there's no control group. What I do is I prepare a comprehensive quiz. It's not a long one, just open-ended questions. And these questions are testing whether these students or at what level these students have the expected learning outcomes. Okay, and that's the first day of class. After doing the team building and the knowing each other, I give that to them. I tell them then by the end of the semester, I'm going to show you your answers, right? And it's amazing. You should see their faces. You should see the way they laugh at their answers. So by the end of the semester, last day of class, where I have thanked them, when we have done the reflection and answered any questions, what I do is I give them the quiz again. I said, okay, can you write your answers? So like 10 minutes, and they'll start writing, right? And then I bring out that week 1 quiz, which is marked, and I show them the quiz and I say, okay, now I want you to mark your last quiz. Look at the difference. Right in front of their eyes. This is how much I have learned in 15 weeks within this semester. Such an effective way of proving how much learning occurred. Okay, and of course, this is just an example of, these are the questions, and you have the pre-test and the post-test, the percentage of students who got the answers right, and then you see the change, and of course you can see here the pre-test much lower than the post-test scores for each question, and that of course is just clear-cut evidence that your students have learned. We tend to assume that it's happened, right? But then when you have it right in front of your eyes and you measure it, it's satisfying. So back to question 2. 15 minutes, it's 5:42. Okay, we have enough time. So back to question 2. What's the right way to teach? But I don't want to ask that question, I respect my fellow teachers. And as I said, I'm not here to tell people what to do. I'm not an expert in education. I'll just tell you what I saw worked better. That suits me more, right? So if teaching is about learning, then the methods you use must ensure learning, and you need to have evidence for that. But then, what are these right methods? It's not an easy question because, you have the contingency theory here saying, if, then, and this is something really difficult. You need to learn and read, and then you will be able to answer that question, or you can consult others who have more experience than you or who have the expertise. So along the years, my teaching approaches have, gradually changed since 2002 to 2022. And for the first time, I put them in a process view to share with you. This is how I used to teach back in 2002, 2003, the first 5-7 years when I was still exploring. I just went with the standard procedures that were there. I saw others giving a lecture, giving students homework, doing midterms and final exams. And I did that. I took a course outline and I followed what that course outline said. So the lectures had a bit of discussion, but my whole concern was about covering. It was not about answering students' questions. I said, well, I'll answer the questions later. They'll study, they'll know, and if they have questions, they'll visit me in my office and ask. But later on, almost 20 years later, I realized, no, that doesn't work. And you will see the difference. I used PowerPoint slides, heavily relied on PowerPoint slides to an extent that I remember in my first year, I couldn't give a lecture without PowerPoint. And that made me feel weak. I said, I don't need PowerPoint. The knowledge is in my head. I'm here because students need the knowledge that's in my head, in my mind. I can function without PowerPoint. And all my teachers who taught me, they used PowerPoint. There were only very few teachers who used a conversation style, discussion style. They would pull a chair and just start talking to us. And they would have the book open. It was more like storytelling. And I enjoyed those classes. Anyway, so I gave them homeworks, and you know what the questions were? They were the discussion questions from the end of each chapter. And then I give them midterm exams and final exams were from the test banks. Very simple. And I'm sure there are many people who still do it this way. But then that changed. After 5-7 years, it changed. I started incorporating more discussions in my lectures. So I would have 2 sessions for each lecture topic, and I would have lecture plus discussion. And I gave up PowerPoint slides and I started using my own chapter summaries. I did not use the publisher's chapter summaries. I developed my own chapter summaries. And what I did was I would have 3 to 5 books. Say I teach human resource. So I would have 3 to 5 books, one from the UK, one from Australia, one from the US, and another one from anywhere else. And I would read the same chapter. So say the chapter is about performance appraisals. So 5 different chapters on performance appraisals. And then I would design an extended chapter summary for my student as a supplementary course material for every chapter. And I'm still doing that. And then I started using low stake tests and quizzes instead of midterms. And here again, my own questions. I stopped using test banks and I do not use them. And according to our policy, we are not supposed to use test banks because students buy them. They are there. Students have their own online groups and all the test banks are there. So recycling text exam questions, not a good practice. Number 3, homework. I stopped using the chapter discussion questions unless if I found the question to be really good. I moved towards designing my own questions, which I felt were more aligned to the student learning outcomes, which I put for my students, which were guided by all the sources that I told you, Vision Oman, and the future skills of work and so forth. I included something different, feedback sessions. Usually, we give students their marks and that's it. If they ask why, we tell them why. But then we don't hold a whole session where we discuss about their performance. I started doing that because I realized that students learn from their mistakes. And that's the whole purpose of teaching, right? You want them to learn. So I dedicated some classes, say 2-3 sessions in the 15-week semester to give students feedback on their homework and tests. And I used some statistics. How many students got this question right? 70%, 80%, 90% of the class. So a very low majority got this wrong. Okay, and the students know themselves. So then they start asking questions. With these feedback sessions, I started realizing that when students talk to each other, they sometimes learn more from each other than from me. So I started using teams, study groups, and I backed that with research and I shared that finding to students and I said, have a study group and study with them before you come to a quiz or an exam. Midterm and final exams, I stopped using test banks and I relied on most recent chapters because I started testing students, throughout the semester. After every 2 chapters, there would be a test. If it is 1 chapter, I select parts, that are important and I tell them you have a quiz on these areas because those are the parts that are important. Those are the areas that I want them to know. Okay, so what has become? What is my teaching style now? Well, you see all that red? These are all the changes. So the difference between how I used to do it almost 20 years ago and now it's a big difference. There's more to it, a lot more to it. I start all my courses with team building. It's fun. Students relax, they get to know each other, and I ask them to create teams and to report to me their team, a list of team members' names, IDs, phone numbers, and to elect 2 leaders. I emphasize co-leadership, shared leadership for business continuity reasons. We teach business to students, and we have to incorporate the idea of continuity. Because what I saw in the past is when the leader is not there, work stops. And that's not how business is done. When the leader is not there, there is an automatic replacement for that leader, someone else who could do the work. My lectures, you've got the synchronous teaching, the live, and they also have the recorded one. This is because of the pandemic, of course, but it's there to stay. I have sessions that are fully dedicated for discussions. And this is to help my students become independent learners and critical thinkers. And this thing of justifying, I focus a lot on this. I ask students why, even in true-false questions. You said true or false. Justify to get an additional mark for that. You see, it's not enough to say, I agree, I disagree. Tell me why. The quiz and tests after each chapter or 2 chapters, but there's something different that I do now. I don't do written quizzes only, but I also do oral quizzes. And I also have tried the 2-staged exams. And I also do use team quizzes, which are oral quizzes. And students find these very, very helpful for them in understanding various topics. Feedback sessions, skill building activities. I am more focused now on building skills. So every course I teach, I have, so for example, human resource management, I have 6 skills that I want all my students to build. And I dedicate sessions, workshops, tutorials, seminars after covering the lectures. So they hear from me in the lecture, and then I hear from them in the discussion, and then I test them, and then we sit together and use hands-on practice method where I want them to build skills so that they can get jobs. And then they reflect. Sometimes if there are controversial issues, we have a debate and we change the classroom design, we move the chairs around. When we have seminars for topics that they don't understand, we do research and I ask them to report the research. So I ask them to sit for small groups. They sit in crescent seating arrangement. For large group discussions, whole class, they sit in U shape. I invite managers. Just before this presentation, we had a manager from Oman LNG from the HR department, senior manager of transformation, and he evaluated my students' presentations and then did a short presentation for them and answered their questions, linking the gap between theory and practice. You see, I'm all guided with what? I want to prepare them for jobs. I want to prepare them for the world outside the boundaries of your university. Something new I've added, of course, for years I've been doing this, is having end of semester reflections. Reflections work better when students report them to each other and discuss. They share ideas. And I also use images. I ask them to draw. It's good for their mental health towards the end of the semester where they're facing a lot of pressure. They draw with, they paint, or they can use apps, but they don't write words. They only write their names and their IDs to get the scores. 5 marks, sometimes 10 marks. So they do a poster gallery. We walk around the class, we see different posters by different students, and they then explain to us what these posters are. And I do have rubrics for all of these assessments. Final exam, or sometimes an alternative form, or sometimes no final exam, because I do keep my students busy throughout the semester. In human resource management, it is skill-based course. My students, when they graduate, they get jobs. And I have seen this happening. And when did they start becoming highly demanded? That's when I moved towards building skills. My own reflections, number 11, something that I didn't used to do several years ago. Now I do self-reflection and I read students' evaluation surveys, the CATs, we call them, course and teaching survey. I read what students say about me. I look for trends. I have my surveys from 2002 and 2005 and 7 up to today. And I improve as a result of what they say. You see, because I have good assumptions. I don't believe that students will write negative things about you because you gave them a C or a D. They don't know their grade when they do that survey. I look for trends, I look for similarities across sections and over the years, and I work on those areas. That's how I make use of students' evaluations. And then number 12, something I didn't use, but I've started doing this, is publishing my ways of teaching. So scholarship of teaching and learning. What I saw worked, as I mentioned, I just put them all together. As you can see, a variety of methods and activities that I use. Other techniques that work, for example, a course map. Fantastic idea to help students know how the different topics are connected. Try to prepare a mind map, but this mind map links the different topics that you teach. Usually when students start classes, believe me, they don't see the topics connected. And it is your job as a teacher to provide them with this map. or some would call it a syllabus map. So it's similar to this. You know, you would say, okay, so this course talks about X, Y, Z. We are going to talk about the causes, the influencers, the advantages and disadvantages, and ethical and legal issues. That's your course. So students now know what are the 4 major areas we're going to focus on. You've made it very simple for them. Okay, and the idea of using rubrics, something that I didn't used to use in the past, but then starting from 2017-18, I started developing rubrics to make sure that I was consistent and fair in the way I evaluated my students and gave them feedback. So towards the end, I say teaching should not be a solo journey. You know, you're all unique. You're shaping minds, you're touching hearts. You know, you are part of this movement in the world that's making change. You are making change from the classroom. You are influencing minds that will make decisions for tomorrow. That's a great responsibility. And that's why teaching shouldn't be a solo journey. When you isolate yourself, you're limiting yourself to your own perspectives. You're missing a lot. And there is a lot that we all need to do to catch up with. Now, I would like to share this quote by George Bernard Shaw. He said, and this is fantastic. Look at this apple and look at these 2 people. These are teachers, you and me. We're sharing, right? So he said, if you have an apple and I have an apple and we exchange these apples, you and I will still each have 1 apple, isn't it? You give me yours, I give you mine. Has anything added? No. But if you have an idea and I have an idea, and we exchange these ideas, what happens? We end up having 2. You have 2 ideas and I have 2. And that's what happens when we collaborate. So how to improve your teaching? Make your teaching visible. Talk to teachers about your teaching. How to do it, how to start. Use a course portfolio, and there's so many benefits. Collaborate with other teachers in regular meetings where you just sit and talk about whatever concerns you. Make it part of your culture. Okay, so how do you prepare a course portfolio? Pick up a course you like. Make that your guiding star. I'm sure all of you will have a course that is closer to your heart. I want you to question what you do in it, how you teach. After all these years of teaching, isn't it time now to make teaching an intellectual journey rather than something that you just do every day? Make it purposeful, make it intellectual. And it will only become intellectual if you start questioning your approaches and you share that with others and you seek feedback from your peers. They don't have to be experts. Like myself, I'm not an expert. But you also can seek expert advice. For example, when I want expert advice in Sultan Qaboos University, I go to the Center of Excellence in Teaching and Learning. But before that, I go to the experts in teaching in College of Education. And they help me, they answer questions. So, and you continuously improve. What are the benefits of a portfolio? Someone might be thinking, why should I waste my time doing all this? Well, it's a tool for self-reflection. Do you know how many hours you spend teaching? Isn't it worth stopping and self-reflecting? It will help you grow, but also it will help you see that chemistry. All these years of teaching, have you ever stopped and asked, what's the relationship between my teaching and the learning that happens on the other side? It will give you a way of documenting, a way of providing evidence. Where is the evidence of your teaching? Where is the evidence that you're continuously improving? Do you have it? Have you documented it? Well, if you have a course portfolio, you will have it. And now with IJADA, the performance management system we have now, well, that document can be used for discussing your performance with your HOD. If you're going to apply for a promotion, you put that whole course portfolio as part of your application. And if you're going to apply for a teaching award, that course portfolio is sufficient evidence that you are a teacher who is working towards continuous improvement. So What do I do? What do I include in my course portfolio? Put your teaching philosophy, put your course outline, put samples of your best work. So what do? You redesign the classroom environment. You used, say, the two-staged exams. You used debates for the first time. Mention that. You used oral quizzes for the first time. Mention that. And then give samples of your students' work. Analyze their scores, and then give an analysis of your teaching and the result, the changes in your teaching style, your teaching methods, and the changes in the results. When do students perform better? When did you see their scores going down? Look at the course evaluation results, include them, learn from them. And then, out of all this, pick some aspects of your teaching in your course. I'm sure there's something that you enjoy doing in one of your courses or all of your courses. Pick that aspect and say, I'm going to do a small investigation, a small research. I do a little research, whether it is qualitative, quantitative, mixed method, and I include that in my portfolio. Of course, you will have recommendations at the end. Anything else you want to add? Yes, you can put any training programs, any development programs, any community service, any research you did that is related to that course. Put that as proof that you've been developing yourself, you've been serving the community, you've been improving teaching and learning, and then share that portfolio with the right people and the right teams. Who are they? You can share that with peers in your department. You can share that with your Center of Excellence in Teaching and Learning. You can share that with the promotion committee. You can share that with the committee that evaluates applications for teaching awards. You can share that with other higher education institutions or other colleges within your university. You can share that in international conferences on teaching and learning. You can publish what you have been doing for years. And all of these contribute to your performance appraisal, your eligibility for promotion. Another way is to have collaboration meetings. So you just sit and talk. Have these regular meetings where you talk about what you do, how you do it, why we do it this way. You can even together sit and design a course, design exams together. You know, research studies have proved that it leads to improved learning, enhanced performance, reduced stress, increased job satisfaction, and better student outcomes. So why not have those meetings? You know, it's all about teachers helping teachers. You sit together and you help each other. You fill those gaps. Discuss whatever matters to you. Put your agenda and discuss it. It could be several things based on your own needs. What do you need to have this culture at UTAS and IBRI? Your top managers need to support it. You need to have a shared goal and focus. Why do we need a culture of collaboration? We should all agree on that, you know, and provide regular opportunities and put teachers into teams based on their areas of interest, you know, and provide a safe place for them to collaborate. A safe place because they will be talking about confidential issues. Some of these will be. And respect the individual needs. People are different. Some are more advanced. Some will be intermediate level. Some will be beginners, like how I was in 2002. And you should create an environment of trust where I feel relaxed to share with others my mistakes and what I do. What is the way to avoid teacher isolation and break those silos that we have in most of our higher education institutions is create teams for teachers to collaborate and have it in your schedule that we need to have after every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, teacher collaboration meetings. So what after that? I know I've gone 4 meetings above, just bear with me. What after that? Your teaching becomes an intellectual work. It's not just a job that I do. You become a scholar in the area of teaching and learning. You know, you critically reflect on what you do. You become a more responsible teacher, someone who can stand in front of an audience and confidently say, I do what I do because, and I have evidence that it works. And you can help other teachers. You advance and you help teaching and learning improve. When you retire or when you change jobs, you do so with great satisfaction. You know that you fulfilled your highest, your truest version. You tried your best. You have the honor of that. and that you improve teaching and learning either in your university or in the country. And by doing that, you improve the lives of hundreds and hundreds of students that you teach, and your influence stays with them. My teacher died in 2008. Her influence is still there with me. She doesn't know that. She doesn't know that I pray for her. She doesn't know that when I got my PhD, I said to God, I said, God, can you please tell her that I got my PhD? Because she's the one who told me, go do your PhD. We want to have more women, Omani women in higher education. And here I am. 20 years later, I am sharing my 20 years of teaching experience with other teachers who are in different career stages. You want to leave behind that positive influence. Let questions be your guiding stars. Let excellence be your brand. Do not go below that. You're not wasting 8 hours of a day of your life doing work that you're not sure it works or it doesn't. Is it helping or not? Now, my last message to you is, in your next class, I guarantee you, you're not going to be the same person you were when you joined this webinar. You will question your choices. You are going to question your choices, and you will remember me when you do that. Please let that curiosity lead you, because it will encourage you to start reading and start talking and thinking about teaching and thinking about the interplay between teaching and learning. And that is a choice you will make, and it will mark the start of your real evolution towards excellence. And that is all from me. So I'd like to thank you all for giving me your time. I'm really honored and humbled. And I would like to end with what I started. I'm not an expert in education. I'm not here to tell others how to teach. I'm just someone who loves teaching, someone who believes in the power of making teaching and learning visible through course portfolios and teachers' collaborations. Thank you very much. Your colleague from Sultan Qaboos University, Dr. Misida Al Jawhari. Thank you for your attention and your time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Doctor. It was an informative session. We have learned a lot, actually, Doctor,
Thank
from
you.
your, mashallah, yani 20 years of experience. Thank you so much for this. Um, just now, we are going to keep the feedback link and also e-certificate link. If you fill it, then you will be able to receive what we call an electronic certificate, inshallah. So now I'll keep it there.
So you're
Uh,
going to email it, or you're going to send it here in the chat area?
in the chat area. It
Okay.
is there now. Yeah. So
Tamam.
please, those participants who are with us right now, please fill the feedback link and also the e-certificate link, so that you will be able to get your e-certificate, inshallah. Thank
Inshallah.
you so much, Doctor. It was really very, very useful for everyone. Uh,
Alhamdulillah.
yeah, Alhamdulillah. And we hope, we will have you, inshallah, even our university in Ibri,
Yes.
physically, let's say, not even online, inshallah.
Inshallah. Inshallah. I really hope that, the people who are here today and gave me their valuable time, I do hope that at least even one bit of information they found useful. I really hope that there is someone who raised their hand, and I don't know if there is a question, or you prefer not to take any questions because of time limitations.
Yeah, I think we can have, let's have one or two questions,
Okay.
for 5 minutes maybe. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
someone wants to ask, go ahead, please. Yeah.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Yes, salam alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Dr. Misida, thank you very much. This is one of the best presentation I've heard
Thank you.
long time ago. I mean, it really went, we all thought about our experience during the last 20 years, and
Yes.
I learned a lot. It was
Thank
very
you.
useful. Thank you for this wonderful piece of and very professional. I wouldn't call it a presentation. It's like, I mean, It's really took us through very detailed life experience and a lot of lessons we learned how to integrate your experience into ours as well. And thank you, really. It's very, very wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to hear that.
Okay, so can we have one more maybe? Yes, Ahmed, I
Hello,
think.
hello,
Hello.
hello.
Yes, hello.
Good evening,
Yes.
sir. Good evening, Mr. Dr. Misida.
Hello, good evening.
I am in Saudi Arabia. Now I'm from Saudi
Okay.
Arabia. I'm talking to you. So
Oh,
nice to
hello.
meet you
Hello to
today.
the people of
And for
Saudi
this good
Arabia.
presentation. Yeah, I am Sudanese, but I have been teaching in Majma
Yes.
University
Yes.
since 10 years.
Nice. I have very good friends from Saudi Arabia.
Thank you very much. So your presentation is very nice and good, and then calculated, controlling, and good job with the teaching talk. So thank you very much. Thanks
My
and so
pleasure.
much for you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you very much.
appreciating. Thank you for appreciating.
Thank
Really pleased.
you.
Really
Appreciate it.
pleased to hear that. I'm pleased that I didn't waste anybody's time.
Hello? Hello, I don't know if my hand is up.
Yes, yes.
I'm Sakala Stanley
Hello.
from Zambia. I don't know if I'm
Yes.
loud. Yes. A teacher of English and
Yes.
Zambian languages.
Wow.
Been working for 14 years now in education.
Fantastic.
The first thing I'd like to appreciate you from the bottom of my heart.
Oh, thank you
I have
so
learned
much.
a lot, and this is amazing to me. And let's hope the slide will be shared at the end of the session.
Oh,
Now, the question that I would like to learn from you,
yes.
besides that, I'm a secondary school teacher.
Yes.
But I'd like to learn from you that side. I don't know what country is that?
What? Sorry.
Country where you are. Country.
Oh, I'm in Oman, from Sultan Qaboos University.
Okay, thank you. The challenge that we have been facing here as teachers in Zambia is the workload. You find at the same time you're a teacher, you are attached to guidance and counseling department,
Yes.
you are attached to different committees.
Yes.
And for you to find ample time,
Yes.
make sure that you shape a child, you teach a child the maximum. It's not enough. Now,
Yes.
how have you been managing time, looking
Yes.
at your vast experience in education system? How
Yes.
have you been managing that side so that I also learn and be able to perfect my